Nissan's new X-Trail coming down to India. I'm here in Tokyo to drive this SUV. Now expected arrival in India is 2024. It's going to be a CBU, of course. That's what Nissan has indicated, that it's going to be importing this car down to India, which means it will be falling in the steep price bracket category, 40-45 lakhs and perhaps above. This one that I'm driving is the e-Power, which is a hybrid. It's got the all-wheel drive powertrain as well, the E4 Force. But in addition, what you can see is essentially what's the version going to come down to India. The boot area, as I mentioned, because this is the hybrid, battery pack sits underneath there, and what you don't get is a spare wheel. You can see all the electronics in here. That is of course the battery for the supplementary electronics, not the main battery for the hybrid powertrain. But then there's no space for either a space saver or full-size spare. Now that may come down to India. We might get a full-size spare, we might get a space saver. That hasn't been configured as of yet. We don't know what the configurations will be like. And clearly it shows you the E4 Force and the e-Power, the hybrid badging, the four-wheel drive powertrain in here. Quite a nice looker, far more refined, very subtle lines from the previous generation SUV. I'm quickly going to take you inside the cabin. And if you look at it, it's quite Spartan, fairly easy and comfortable for that matter. Plenty of space, and you've got electronic controls for the seats. I do like the instrument cluster right behind the steering wheel. Quite an impressive layout over there. The steering wheel also itself quite sporty, quite nice with a flat bottom feel. Large 10.5-inch screen for all your touch functions, smartphone accessibility, smart connectivity, and of course you've got a lot of analog dials and controls for the temperature, for the AC controls as well. Gear shift lever, no paddle shifters behind the steering wheel, but that's fine. This is still going to be an off-road vehicle. Most importantly is the off-road drive modes control knob right here. As you can see, it's got the trails for snow, highway, grass, and of course it's also got a sport mode, which is fairly interesting to see how does that work. But there's sport, there's eco, there's auto, there's snow, and there is off-road. Those are drive modes that you can select. In addition, this hybrid has got the EV selector along with the e-pedal, which gives you continuous motion but also works like an electric would. Now, quickly in the back seat, and take a look at it. Fairly large amounts of space, but you're sitting also quite high up. This is a raised floor, and that's also because, like I said, this is a hybrid, so the battery pack sits underneath the floorboard, the seats, and the boot area. It doesn't feel very comfortable, especially for long journeys. Not a lot of space underneath for your feet, though you can adjust it because the driver's seat is electronically adjustable, so you can raise the height there, and then you've got some space underneath here. But quite a Spartan cabin, quite a Spartan rear bench. All you've got are temperature controls, and you've got ventilated seats for the rear passengers as well. That's something new and interesting. I do hope that feature comes down to India as well. You've got ventilated seats. But apart from that, nothing major that stands out. Panoramic sunroof, not in the X-Trail, standard old school sunroof. Fit and finish, quality of leather and the trim feels quite impressive.
The hybrid version of the Nissan X-Trail that I'm driving with the E4 Force essentially uses a 1.5-litre petrol engine clubbed to two electric motors, one in the front and one at the rear. And that's essentially how it gets its four-wheel drive powertrain.
Acceleration is sharp, and while it's a hybrid, get on the throttle hard and you can feel the IC engine coming on. Yet there's a little bit of a shudder that you can feel in the pedals and on the steering as it makes the transition from electric to ICE mode. Ride quality is pretty impressive, but then again, we're in Tokyo. The roads are absolutely brilliant. There really isn't much for the suspension to work hard on. The steering also, it's got enough weight in it. It's light, but you can feel the weight coming in when you turn into a corner. You can also feel a little bit of torque steer getting into the steering wheel when you hard on the throttle pedal. When you're in off-road mode, though I'm not sure how the vehicle will behave, but I think this would be a fairly comfortable SUV to drive in off-road mode. Doesn't have that aggression of previous generation SUVs, of previous generation X-Trails. It's far more refined than it used to be before. I'm not really sure how it will perform off-road, but we will get to see that as well in the future. Clearly, the indicators show you how the power flow or the energy flow is taking place. There's energy going in from the IC engine into the battery pack to charge the battery pack, and right now the battery pack is what is delivering the energy to all the four wheels. Of course, now because we're braking, it's recuperating energy as well and drawing charge back into the battery pack. So overall then, the Nissan X-Trail, too short a drive to get a complete assessment of how this SUV feels, but it is promising and should be an interesting product for Nissan in India. Hopefully, Nissan should get back into the groove once the X-Trail is down. Along with that, they've also got the plans for the C SUV, the C Plus SUV, and the A Plus SUV as well. So multiple segments that they're going to be catering to over the next 2-3 years. Should be a fairly interesting journey for Nissan once again in India.